I just want to bring something else into this conversation, Tom, that you mentioned when you were speaking, and that is the notion of public consent to legal migration. Now, I'm interested, if you could tell me in one sentence why legal migration is good in principle, I'm interested.
I think that there are clearly certain roles in our economy where actually drawing those skills in from from outside of the United Kingdom has a role to play. Certainly in the short term, while you try to put in place, for example, a comprehensive labour market strategy, an ability to be able to enhance and deliver on those skills in the UK. I also think that, for example, through our safe and legal routes, many people in this country are rightly proud of the response that we had, for example, to the situation in Ukraine, to the situation in Hong Kong and other countries around the world that have met with conflict, because I would hope that if we were ever in a situation like that, that others would want to help our citizens, God forbid. That is the right and responsible thing to do. That is through the lens of legal migration. But we must bring those numbers down. The numbers we've seen in recent years are just not acceptable.
OK, so what I find interesting about that, because generally the narrative that comes out of the political class is that mass migration is good for economic reasons, and that's essentially part of what you just said. And that worldview, in principle, I just fundamentally disagree with, because I think that the negative consequences of mass migration, even if it could be shown that it was hugely economically beneficial, it's outweighed by the negatives, by the impact on social cohesion, social trust, by the impact on cultural fabric, by the sense that a lot of people have in this country that their homeland is being fundamentally changed in a way that is negative. There are areas of this country that have become unrecognisable over the last 20, 30 years. And I think people rightly have problems with that. And so it's just interesting to me how there remains this commitment to the policy of mass migration by people like yourself, despite the fact that the public mood is now against immigration in principle. And it's no longer a question of simply reducing the numbers. I mean, the figure of tens of thousands is obviously banded around a lot. I think there are a lot of people out there now that think even tens of thousands is too much. And I mean, I'm of the belief that we need a moratorium on legal migration.
So I campaigned to leave in the EU referendum, and one of the reasons for that was because I was unhappy with EU free movement and the fact that we could do nothing about that. And the whole principle in the referendum was to have an immigration system that meant that you could pull the levers and determine your own destiny when it comes to the numbers of people coming here.
But what did that lead to? Your colleagues opened the borders to essentially the third world. They closed the doors to Europe, which would have been, migration from Europe is preferable to migration from, for example, North Africa and the Middle East, because these are countries that are more culturally proximate to our own.
My record as legal migration minister was dramatically bringing the numbers down. The package of measures that's seeing the numbers come down month on month was the work that I did in government to bring them down. And that was precisely what I wanted us to be able to do on the back of the referendum, being able to pull those levers, taking a judgment on what the skills and what the needs were in our economy, how and if we wanted to respond to international crises and in what way in order to try and do that. And, for example, it was one of the reasons why I was very supportive of the work we did around trying to establish a cap on safe and legal routes to make sure that the number of places that we were providing annually would have arguably been much smaller year to year, because it was reliant upon what resources there were in communities across the UK to be able to facilitate that. But to try and bring these numbers much more in line with public expectations, and also what was manageable year to year, not least to ensure proper integration